nothing's off the table. What's your plan to make New York City feel like a safer city?
S.E Cupp, that's your perception. Of course, there's a lot of crime.
So what's happening right now? Let's dive in. Welcome to Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. It is Monday, September 29th, and we are just 36 days away from this all-important New York City mayoral election, and the race has changed. Let's get right to the big news. Joining me now is Morgan McKay, a political reporter for Fox 5 New York. Morgan, you and I were on the air yesterday together because what happened?
I think this came not really as a surprise to anyone. I think the only thing that was a surprise was really how it happened. We had been hearing for weeks now that Mayor Eric Adams was considering dropping out of the race. And earlier this month, even, he had been discussing with business leaders saying that he was going to be taking a poll to decide whether or not he was going to drop out before October 1st. His spokesman confirmed that that's what he was talking about. But then 2 days later, Adams came out and said, that's actually not true. I'm only doing a poll to determine messaging. I'm in this race. So he's been doing this back and forth for weeks now, but it's finally over this weekend. Yesterday, he said that he's officially out of the race and he's suspending his campaign.
Let's take a listen to some of, he released a 9-minute video. Let's just listen to a small part of it.
Despite all we've achieved, I cannot continue my re-election campaign. The constant media speculation about my future and the campaign finance board's decision to withhold millions of dollars have undermined my ability to raise the funds needed for a serious campaign.
Constant media speculation. Morgan, he's talking about us. He's talking about reporters and people like us constantly asking the question because it was constantly being raised. What had you been hearing yesterday, though? I know my Sunday was interrupted. What were you hearing up until the moment that he actually released that video?
So to your point there, I think him blaming the media a little bit, he was frustrated at the media for weeks now, saying that how dare the media report that he's having these private conversations talking about dropping out of the race, saying, he's the one that should be able to say when exactly he drops out. But yesterday, I received a phone call at around 11 a.m. that this was probably going to be the day. I was actually at a wedding upstate, so got in the car and traveled back very quickly as fast as I could to report on this. But yeah, it's we had heard that it was going to be happening likely before October 1st. I didn't quite expect it to be yesterday until yesterday morning. And then we heard, the 1 p.m. video announcement. Now, as far as what's next, he's going to have to take questions eventually. He's trying to right now duck the press a little bit. His campaign spokesperson said that he asked the media to respect this time and to not pepper him with questions. And, usually as somebody in the media, as that's usually reserved for people who are maybe going through a death in the family or something like that. But this was, a little, I guess, caught us at least off guard because he is going to have to answer questions. Just when that is, it's up in the air right now.
Yeah, because he's not just a candidate. He's the sitting mayor. And so he is going to have to answer some of those questions. That's not how this works. So what stood out to you in his very long announcement, Morgan?
Three things, really. One was what he blamed it on, which you mentioned right there, the media. He also blamed a little bit about his corruption case. You'll remember last September, he was indicted on 5 charges, including bribery and soliciting illegal campaign donations. And those charges were dropped by the Trump administration earlier this year, but not before. 4 of his deputy mayors resigned. There were prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office that resigned. And the judge even said at the time that this smelled like a bargain. So that was all going on at the time. And he said that New Yorkers have had a hard time trusting him again since that criminal indictment. So he did sort of talk about it and put that blame there. He also, though, I guess for me, 2 things that I want answered that I feel like weren't answered in that video is why exactly now? I know that October, they really ramp up the campaigns. He also blamed the campaign finance board, I'll mention. And apparently apparently, according to his campaign, he is going to be continuing to fight to get those public matching funds that he was denied because of his corruption case. Not exactly sure why. Hopefully, we'll get more answers from him eventually.
Yeah.
But also just what's next for him. Did he get offered a job? Was there pressure for him to battle out of the race? And what exactly was tied to him bowing out at this moment?
Yeah, that all has to come out. I mean, we all, we in the press, but more importantly, New Yorkers deserve to know why and how this all happened. What's been the reaction from Zohran Mamdani, the frontrunner, whom Adams seemed to be referencing at the end of that announcement? He sort of gave a warning about.
So Zohran Mamdani today came out and said that nothing's changed. He said that it doesn't matter who's on the ballot, it's what is on the ballot, which is meaning his affordability agenda, his platform. He says his ideas are the ones that's going to stand the test of time. It's what voters are going to be supporting, not necessarily candidates. Now, I will mention that Adams was polling at about 8 to 9% in the polls. So where his numbers go, it's a little uncertain. I know that Cuomo right now is trying to tell donors and his supporters that all these votes are going to go to him, but that's not necessarily the case. It could likely be split between Cuomo, Mamdani, and Curtis Lewa. And then there's also a good chunk who might just stay home.
Yeah. Okay, Morgan, stay right there. I've got more questions for you after the break. More Battleground NYC. The fight for your vote. We'll be right back. We're back with more Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. And joining me is Morgan McKay, political reporter for Fox 5 New York. Morgan, Curtis Lewa, the Republican candidate, also reacted to the news. What did he have to say?
So he said that he never really trusted Adams to begin with. He said that he warned New Yorkers last time that he ran, which was 4 years ago, saying that Adams would be caught up in some sort of corruption. So he definitely took the opportunity to criticize Adams while he was down, for sure. But Curtis Lewa, though, also saying that he's not going to be bowing out of the race. If you talk to a lot of experts, they say that Curtis Lewa was really the one you kind of wanted to get out because he's polling quite a bit higher than Adams in most of the polls. But Curtis Lewa says he's not going anywhere and you can't drag him out of the race. And he said he's also gotten about 7 different offers totaling about $10 million from people trying to get him out of the race. But he says he's in it until the end.
Any word on whom Adams may endorse? We know one of his advisors is going to go help the Cuomo campaign now. Is that maybe an indication of what's about to happen?
Yeah, I talked to Frank Carone earlier today, and he said Frank Carone is Adams' longtime confidant, political advisor, lieutenant, going back decades. And he said that he's going to be deciding this week whether or not to either join Cuomo's campaign or to join a super PAC supporting Cuomo. But it's really unclear right now whether or not Adams will also get on board and endorse Cuomo. They have a lot of bad blood. Just a few weeks ago,
Hmm.
Adams called Cuomo a snake and a liar. He also apparently put in his video that was released yesterday some criticism of Cuomo that was actually cut out of the final product, which could maybe hint that he could be endorsing Cuomo, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting too. Okay, lastly, Hakeem Jeffries, minority leader, also had a somewhat big announcement ish over the weekend. What did he say?
Yeah, so House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, when Adams announced that he was going to be bowing out of the race, he thanked Adams for his service, praised him for some of his accomplishments, and then also said that he was going to be endorsing before the start of early voting, which is October 25th. So we can expect, I guess, in the next 3 weeks or so, some sort of endorsement, I'm guessing, from House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Then Mamdani's campaign, maybe in some sort of way to foreshadowing. Mamdani's campaign says they're also going to be announcing some endorsements here shortly as well in the next week or so.
So, are we assuming Hakeem Jeffries is going to endorse the front runner? Is that a reasonable expectation?
It's hard to say. I would say that that's where the breeze is blowing, is that he would likely be endorsing Mamdani. Mamdani did really well in his district. And so I would assume that he's probably going to embrace Mamdani, which would be which would be huge. House Minority Hakeem Jeffries, he's known to be a pretty centrist Democrat. And for him to open up the Democratic Party to a Democratic Socialist will definitely be telling across the nation. So, especially as next year they enter the midterm. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly what he does. I can't predict it, though.
What if he endorsed Cuomo? I feel like that's unlikely, but what if? Because as you mentioned, he is a centrist and he is thinking about the health of the party nationally, not just in New York City, not just in his district, in his state. He is thinking about Democrats in places like Georgia and Michigan who are going to be running and who are going to want to keep or win back House seats. Is there a possibility in your mind, just from covering him for as long as you have, that he could endorse Cuomo instead?
I think there's always that possibility. I think his people are keeping their cards pretty close to his chest on exactly what he's going to decide to do. I think that Cuomo, definitely, you're exactly right, a very much a centrist Democrat. I think it does get a little tough because you had a lot of people, including Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who called on Cuomo to resign when he was governor in 2021. And I would have a hard time, I guess, seeing maybe some leaders going back and endorsing somebody that they did call on to resign as governor in 2021. I also think that he, despite a lot of people supporting him, still remains pretty unpopular. So we'll have to see, though. I think it's all
Yeah.
still up in the air, and we're going to have to see exactly what he decides in the end.
Very good points, Morgan. Thanks so much for joining us. As always, we really appreciate your reporting, and thanks for getting your butt back to New York City yesterday.
It was great seeing you. Thank you.
You too. Okay, we'll be right back with more Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote after this. Welcome back to Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. And joining me now for the bigger picture is JC Polanco, an attorney and assistant professor at the University of Mount St. Vincent. JC, welcome back. It's great to see you again.
So happy to see you, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a big day, big news. So, Cuomo's theory of the case, as you know, has been that in a two-man race between him and Zohran Mamdani, he wins. Now,
Yes.
it's not quite a two-man race yet. Slee was still in, as Morgan just let us know. He's not planning on going anywhere. So, does Adams dropping out help Cuomo at all?
It helps him in some ways. Adams and Governor Cuomo share the same voters. These are centrist Democrats, out-of-borough blue-collar workers, people that have catapulted their political careers. And they're centrist moderates. These are people that could vote Republican one election, vote Democratic the next. These are the voters of Mayor Adams, and they would absolutely go to former Governor Cuomo. Now, there's always the question: would all of them go? No, not all of them are going to go. Obviously, some are going to go to Sliwa, and some of them are going to go to Mamdani. There's going to be a good number of them that are going to come. And I wonder what would happen if Mayor Adams, it's going to be tough. He made a tough decision this weekend as city mayor, knowing you're not going to win, saying, I'm not going to do this, and drop out. The next step will be to endorse the front runner in the opposition and actually tell your voters, this is the guy that's going to be able to continue my legacy on fighting crime, bringing unemployment down, economic development, and increasing housing in the city. And he's going to do a good job. If he does that, then it's going to even help him out more, because instead of at 8%, people like yourselves, S.E, and more journalists are going to pay more attention to the race, which is what Governor Cuomo needs in order to make this two-man race.
So you're confident then that Adams voters become Cuomo voters, and you can see a world in which Eric Adams endorses Andrew Cuomo despite all the bad blood and the barbs, and you can see that happening?
Look, politics makes strange bedfellows. I teach history. I can give you about 1,000 of them, but nothing is as strange a bedfellow as J.D. Vance. 1 second calling Trump a Nazi, Hitler, and the next one being his vice president. So give me a break.
Yep.
It's not that crazy. So I can absolutely see it. And you know what? People always ask me, can you see a world in where Curtis Lewa endorses Andrew Cuomo? And JC, can you see a world in where you look like Josh Allen and become 6'5", 220? No, that's not going to happen, right? I don't think so.
Okay.
But it has happened in the past. So if Curtis Lewa were to look at the numbers in the next polls, let's say the next polls come out and show him and in the low teens, 8, 9, 10s, is there a world where he goes and endorses Andrew Cuomo? It could happen. And if it does, it changes the world politically in New York City. It becomes the news nationally. But he's made it very clear he's not dropping out. He's the elephant in the room. And can Andrew Cuomo win with Curtis Lewa on the ballot? I don't think so. It becomes very difficult.
Oof. Do you think Cuomo needs to change up his campaign now that there's no Eric Adams to run against? Or do you think he just sort of stays the course and campaigns the way he's been campaigning of late?
Look, S.E, I got to tell you, if I'm Andrew Cuomo, this whole time he's been running against Mamdani. I don't think he's ever said a word about Adams. He's just been focusing on Mamdani. So as far as Andrew Cuomo is concerned, his job is to bring some of those Democrats to him. You know Curtis Lee was not leaving this race, so you better go ahead and get some of those Democrats back that Mamdani is walking around and flaunting right now in order for you to have a shot in this election. And it can happen. Look, about 72% of all Democrats stayed home during the primary in June. That's crazy.
Right. There's more gettable voters. I don't know that he needs to peel off Mamdani voters, but he certainly needs to turn out every last Democrat that lives in New York City.
I agree. I'm talking about the polls where they show that Assemblyman Mamdani has about 46, 45%. I think he has to go in there and get some of those Democrats back and get some of the 72% that stayed home to come and support him in November. Because remember, and I want your listeners to remember this, you don't need a majority of the vote. All you need is a plurality. So if he can just chip away, he has a shot. I spoke to Curtis Lee on his camp. They're confident. They believe that there's a shot that if there is a universe where this does happen and Cuomo starts peeling away at the Democrats that didn't come out to vote in June, that there is room for him to win on a plurality.
Like that's a 30, 40 kind of split in Curtis Lewa's favor. That would be
33.1, even 33.1, if you think about it. That's what they're hoping on. And he's campaigning hard. You would think that, he's closing down his campaign offices, laying people off. No. Curtis Lee was in it to win it. He's going all out, which is, when you look
Opening
at
new offices. Yeah.
opening up new offices. He's campaigning like it's 1999, right?
Yeah. It's funny, JC, because I've known Curtis a long time too. I lived in New York and he would come on our shows. Um, and he is very serious this go around. I wouldn't have said that for every other, you know, political outing he's had. He sounds serious to me. I believe him when he says, I'm not getting out of this race.
I don't think he is. I think he's going to stay, which is why if the next polls come in and show that Curtis Lee was still in the single digits or in the low teens, he's going
in
to
the low
stay.
teens.
So Andrew Cuomo has to think about, how am I going to win, notwithstanding Curtis Lee was still in this race. Forget about him dropping out. That's not going to happen. And I got to say one more thing. If the polls come back and show that Slee was ahead of Cuomo, well, then I consider Cuomo should do the same thing and back out and support Sliwa. So whatever the opposition is to defeat Assemblyman Mamdani and the Democratic Socialists of America.
This race has been so interesting. And I think, actually, even though we just have 30 plus days left, it's about to get even more interesting. Okay, JC, I've got more questions, so don't go anywhere.
Okay.
More Battleground NYC after the break. We're back with more Battleground NYC. One more time with the bigger picture is JC Polanco, an attorney and assistant professor at the University of Mount St. Vincent. JC, we know that President Trump wants this to be a race between Cuomo and Mamdani. And we know he was pressuring Eric Adams to drop out. Do you think that New Yorkers see Adams dropping out as somehow the work of Donald Trump and sort of meddling and rigging this election?
I don't think they view it as Donald Trump rigging this election. I think that Donald Trump deep down inside needs Assemblyman Mamdani to win this election. This is going to be the gift that keeps on giving for Republicans nationally. I was a Republican for 20 years. I've been in those rooms making those videos and mail pieces, and I'll tell you, this is the gift. You're giving the Republicans an opportunity for them to campaign in districts that are purple states, purple districts, and they're going to put those videos of Assemblyman Mamdani talking about decriminalizing prostitution and seizing the methods of production. And oh my goodness, the anti-private property stuff on decommodifying housing right on the necks of those purple district Democrats. I think Republicans need this. They want this. And every time we see President Trump go on Twitter or X or anywhere else to blast Assemblyman Mamdani, he knows exactly what he's doing. He wants this to happen. Look, there may be a Speaker Jeffries, but the margins won't be as high as they would. But this is already having an impact in New Jersey's race with Mickey Sherrill. This is already having an impact in the Virginia governor's race. We see it in Michigan. Every purple state is going to pay the price for the short-sighted hubris of all of those Democrats that showed up to a closed party primary and voted for this TikTok sensation to be the Democratic nominee for mayor of New York City.
Okay, I completely agree with you in your reading of the Republican zeal for this candidate. But my question, I'm trying to see how New Yorkers see this. And if you're a New York voter and the president of the United States is dipping his hand into a local election,
Oh
I'm
my God.
just wondering if you think New Yorkers are feeling a little icky
Of course.
about how some of this is going. Like, is Andrew Cuomo working with Donald Trump? And did they pay Eric Adams or offer him a job? Like, I'm just wondering if you think New Yorkers care about that.
Look, there's some New Yorkers that care about conspiracy theories. There's some New Yorkers that see the president meddling in this race and they don't like President Trump. Look, New York
Yeah.
City does not like President Trump. There are
Yeah.
pockets of New York City that likes President Trump, but I put my last dollar that if we have an election between COVID-19 and President Trump, COVID-19 wins by 5 points. That's how unpopular President Trump is
Yes.
throughout New York City. So
Yes.
President Trump knows this. He's a smart guy. So when he pushes the thumb on this, he knows this is a rallying cry for Mamdani's support. Even some independent Democratic leaners out there are going in to support Mamdani because he's the one that's being targeted by the president. And anything
Yeah.
President Trump does is terrible. So he knows what he's doing, which is my point. He wants there to be a Mayor Mamdani. It's why today he says, New York City will get no money from me
Yeah.
if you elect Mamdani, knowing full well
Right.
that the USSR of Western Queens is going to come out in full force when they hear stuff like that and support Assemblyman Mamdani even more. And if you're a Democrat sitting on the fence, this is going to rile you up. And you're going to see that one of your guys is getting attacked by the boogeyman out there in Washington. So he knows what he's doing.
Okay, let's talk about Democrats because we just talked about the Republicans. National Democrats, as you know, have been keeping a very close eye on this race, and we've both discussed how you might see it if you're a Democrat in Michigan or Georgia, right? What do you think they're thinking today with Eric Adams out of the race now? Are they thinking, "Oh, good, Cuomo's got a shot"? Are they thinking, "Okay, this just got a little tougher for Mamdani, our favorite socialist"? You probably talk to more Democrats than I do. You tell me.
I think that they're thinking this is a good thing because the chances of the centrist winning become better. They're not great, but they're better than they were on Friday, right? This is about anywhere from 9 to 11% of Democrats that of voters in New York City that Eric Adams had in the polls. There's a good chance that a large majority of them are going to go to the former governor. And this is good, they think. And now with 36 days left, they're going to make a big push. And who knows if you could encourage the Democrats that stayed home during the primary, all 72% of Democrats. Now think about that.
Yep.
Two of every three New Yorkers are registered Democrats. 72% of them stayed home. This is crazy.
Yes.
So maybe there's
Yes.
a chance that he's going to excite them to come out and support him in this race and maybe make this an opportunity that is going to shock the world politically.
Yeah, he's got to do that. That's exactly what he's got to do. Okay, before we go, I'm just wondering what you think about the legacy of Eric Adams. He just became a one-term mayor, which is not usual in this town. He was only the second Black mayor to lead New York City. Just before we go, say a little something about what you think Eric Adams is leaving with.
Look, Mayor Adams did a phenomenal job. Crime is down, housing is up, unemployment is down, economic development is great. He would have sailed through re-election had it not been for the mistakes that he made managerially. He hired the wrong people. He brought the people that were loyal to him, kept them around a little too long. Even after they got in trouble, S.E, he still kept them around.
Yeah.
I don't know what this man was thinking. Dave Chappelle had a skit called When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong. Mayor Adams' entire legacy is when keeping it real goes wrong by keeping these people around too long. So it was the drip. It hurt his character. People view him as corrupt. He was never found guilty, but my goodness, he left the city better than he found it. And that's what his legacy could be if he goes and does the right endorsement during this election.
Well, we'll be keeping an eye on all of it, as you know, and JC, you'll have to come back because, like I said, I think there's just going to be more and more and more sort of world-changing events in this race over the next 36 days. Thanks so much for joining us, JC.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. And thank you for joining us. More Battleground NYC every Monday through Friday. So we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for watching Battleground. We're now joining Live Now's nonstop stream of live and breaking news.
Tanks are to the area. So my question is, who is responsible for giving us accurate accounting of those propane tanks, and when can we get that? And my second question is, it apparently is the case where all the propane tanks are being taken back to Matlock Gas. and dumped on their site, which makes me wonder why would we put propane tanks back on the site next to the river that just flooded. So who's making that decision and who is tracking the propane tanks?
Okay, Chief.
So to the reports on numbers, again, you know, we know there were a significant volume of that. Exact count, we don't have as of yet. I don't have a range. I don't. We've seen sites, just single sites that have huge volumes of those tanks, where they were washed to and immediately lodged. As to the movement and storage of those current tanks, that is a question that will have to be answered. What has to occur now is we have to get them out of the waterways. We have to get them out of the waterways. We have to get them staged somewhere, and then it will become a question of how do we fully mitigate that so that we don't run into another issue. That will be something that we will need to work with state agencies and others to coordinate.
There is current work going on in terms of picking up propane tanks.
Correct.
Which I've seen by Matlock and maybe others. And so the current process right now is picking up propane tanks and taking it to Matlock.
To a staging area, yes.
On Matlock property.
Correct.
Sir in the back had the question. I didn't want to overlook you earlier.
This is Private Humphrey. Why hasn't the Army Corps of Engineers been at any meetings or anything to do with the creeks? Why?
All right, officials are continuing to talk about the devastation in Globe, Arizona. We want to continue with our coverage. Let's actually go out live to Globe, Arizona. Once again, we have Fox 10 Phoenix's Kenzie Beach joining us here with the latest of this destruction and unfortunately deaths as well.
Yeah, it's just been absolutely devastating out here in Globe, Arizona. We just heard from the Globe mayor and a ton of other officials just really emphasizing this has been an all hands on deck here in Globe in Miami, Arizona, not just from locals, but I would say hundreds, if not thousands of people from the entire state of Arizona have poured into this area to help with the recovery efforts. This is the entrance to historic downtown Globe right behind me. It's closed off because of the flooding, but I spoke to residents today who told me that this road right here, in a matter of 20 minutes, the river flooding onto this road. It basically turned this roadway into a river in itself, carrying everything in its path. And today, the entire city turning into a construction zone.
For miles and miles, streets are lined with trucks, volunteers and cleanup crews pouring in from all over the state of Arizona after the small towns of Globe and Miami were hit with 3 separate waves of storms, bringing catastrophic flooding.
How do you prepare yourself for a 20-foot wide, 8-foot wall of oncoming water full of debris? It's a daunting task. And then where do you put all the debris once you try to clean it up?
The powerful wall of water carried everything in its path. This video from Friday night shows the moments and aftermath. Cars and people carried by the floodwaters.
This is the worst thing they've ever seen. Yeah. And it came over the wash. I mean, I was in the house when it happened, when this happened. It came over the wash and came in through the back door, and by the time I got downstairs to even look, it was 2.5 feet of water.
As the small towns are overwhelmed by tragedy, they've been met with families and football teams driving in from all over the state to help.
You could see that the water level completely filled the basement and the thing. I mean, it was devastating. And so it's kind of eye-opening for them, like, oh man, this is real destruction.
I want to teach them to serve and to feel that love for other people. We just want everybody to feel loved.
Nothing like a tragedy to bring together a community. Nothing like it. Everybody wants to help. Everybody is watching out for each other.
As volunteers go door to door with their own equipment, putting back together the pieces, business owners are fearful of monsoon storms in the coming years.
Some of the merchants here, nobody's getting rich, and then you add building damage and cleanup. It's really a heartbreaking thing.
Now, that Councilman Don Raymond, he stressed the importance of fast funding in this situation. Not only business owners, but residents worried about next year's monsoon season and the flooding that could bring as well. He talked about the first priority being widening and deepening the washes here over my right-hand shoulder so that when the rainfall does come, they're prepared for this type of flooding. But as we heard in the press conference, no amount of preparation and no amount of sandbags could have prepared or prevented this catastrophic flooding here in Globe and Miami, Arizona. Mike?
Yeah, Kenzie, is just terrible there, but definitely you're seeing that community support coming through, and you see that all the time during these natural disasters that happen. It's always so fascinating when you go into an area, you're thinking, okay, no one's going to want to speak to me. They're having their troubles, but it's always when a natural disaster happens, everybody wants to speak and everybody wants to help out.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I said that to our crews back in Phoenix today, that there is a story to tell on almost every corner here. I mean, people have poured in from all over. Like I mentioned, you saw that football team. You saw a lot of parents bringing their kids up here. For a lot of schools in Arizona, it's fall break, so parents said it was the perfect time to show their kids what serving others is all about. And I mean, you saw in the videos from Globe all the way down to Miami, and this line of cars is not just rush hour. All day long today, cars and trucks have just been pouring in here, bringing their own equipment, doing everything they can to help these people.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Kenzie Beach, reporting live from Globe, Arizona, Fox 10 Phoenix. We appreciate it as always. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
We'll continue to check back in. Let's just listen to a little bit more of the updates still happening right now out in Globe. Let's listen in.
So that data may accurately reflect the position of the actual rain gauge, but to get an accurate reading of how much rain was in such an isolated area is very difficult to get. I've been in this role for 10 years. I've never seen that significant and concentrated of a rain event in such a small area. And of course, that central point of that small area was one that was not monitored by a rain gauge. So again, this was a natural disaster. We do everything that we can to help prepare the community, but similar to that of an earthquake, you cannot stop an earthquake. We can only do what we can to prepare.
Thank you, Carl. In the back, in the blue?
Yes. Do you know, did you get adequate weather warnings before the flood from the Weather Service or media or whatever sources you use for a forecast?
Carl?
There were several flash flood warnings. Our system rebroadcasted them. I don't know that, again, this is a disaster. Flash flood warnings went to the most severe level that they could, but I can't say that I expected more because these notifications were what we get. They did give us a heads up. I wish there was something better in place. I wish there was a more advanced warning, but in reality, the storm formed very quickly and the notification came out as quickly as it could push it.
Thank you, Carl. Ladies in the back in the black.
All right, everyone. So that is the latest updates coming from Globe, Arizona. You saw the devastation and really the community impacts continue to help each other out during this very trying time. We'll take a 2-minute break. We'll come back with the latest updates from the deadly church shooting in Michigan. Latest updates coming up now next on Live. Welcome back, everyone, here to Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. We want to continue to update you on the very sad situation that played out yesterday at a Mormon church in Michigan. We are now learning that 5 people, including the shooter, killed in the mass shooting that then turned into a massive fire that played out in the eyes of just so many that were attending that church and the community as well of Grand Blanc, Michigan. And now we are learning new details about the shooting, including the victims as well. Let's go out right now to Grand Blanc, Michigan, and we are learning just sad situations of some of the victims, including one of those injured, just 6 years old.
That's right, Mike. 6 years old, the youngest, oldest 78. It was a chaotic situation yesterday. Parishioners willing to put their lives on the line as this gunman rammed his truck into their church. One father even says that he felt a bullet fly by him as he started to run.
Panicking and trying to get through the doors as fast as possible and just expecting a bullet in my back. My oldest son, he was holding the door for people. I don't see him cry very often, but I saw the fear.
Police say during a church service, the suspected shooter, 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford, rammed his truck into this church, opened fire, and then tried to burn it down. 5 out of the 8 people injured were taken to the hospital for gunshot wounds. 3 had smoke inhalation. Police say Sanford was a Marine who served in Iraq and was previously arrested for burglary and operating while intoxicated, but law enforcement did not give more details on those arrests. Now, I did try to talk to some of the suspect's neighbors. One neighbor talked to me from their Ring doorbell camera and even says that the suspect was, quote, a nice guy and always said hi. He even added that they were surprised when they saw his picture on the news. Investigators are calling yesterday's attack an act of targeted violence.
As of right now, we are calling it an act of violence as this is an investigation that is continuing. We are continuing to receive leads. We're continuing to run down all information. I would say is when I say targeted violence, I mean targeted within our state and within our community.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt even talked to Fox this morning. She said she spoke with the FBI, and the FBI believe that the suspect, quote, hated people of the Mormon faith, end quote. Investigators still do not have a motive for this attack. Mike.
Yeah, Chelsea, just so disturbing on so many levels, and it really puts into question what so many now churches are thinking about when it comes to security. I know a lot of them, when the mass starts, they'll start locking the doors, but in this situation, I mean, what can you do when the person is just going to ram a truck inside of that church?
Mike, it's so scary. And what's even more scary is after this situation happened, well over 24 hours ago now, there were other threats that were coming into other churches yesterday. That's what authorities had told us last night. And then today, they tell us that they made sure that they have a lot of security at a lot of these churches and even schools, faith-based schools. So, yes, it's an absolute scary situation. But, the authorities are trying to do what they can, what best they can in this situation and just try to keep the community as safe as possible and keep their minds at peace.
Yeah,
Mike.
No doubt about that. Chelsea Torres, thanks so much for joining us on Live Now from Fox. We always appreciate the updates. We'll take a 2-minute break, be back with more on Live Now from Fox. Welcome back, everyone, to Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. Always great to be with you as we continue to bring you some of the day's biggest top stories. Let's go out live right now to Capitol Hill. Senators still talking on the floor. This is Senator Whitehouse as we get closer to a possible government shutdown.
From her 401k. She doesn't yet qualify for Medicare, so she got insurance from Rhode Island State Health Insurance Marketplace. She has a family history of heart disease. She has hypertension. When the tax credits under the Affordable Care Act expire at the end of the year, Carla's monthly premium will go from $427 a month to $904 a month. That's more than double. That's a $477 per month increase to the expenses of a woman whose total income is only $60,000 a year. We ought to be able to solve this. All we're asking for is serious negotiations to address the Republican health care crisis. Or, I guess, if they refuse, the Republican government shutdown. It's very much...
Right, everyone, you are watching Live Now from Fox. That was the Senate floor, but we want to go out live right now to Iowa. Des Moines School Board just came back from a meeting to discuss the future of the superintendent after his education license was revoked. He was investigated by ICE. We are now getting the latest updates right now.
I'll clearly state that I do not know the answer, but we will get back to you with an answer if we can provide it.
Jackie, we have not been able to get confirmation from immigration about his exact status as a citizen. Clearly, the State Board of Education has gotten this. So, and you mentioned it tonight about whether or not you have documentation that shows it. So is there any way to know definitively if he's a citizen or not, and how do we find that out?
I cannot confirm how the Board of Educational Examiners made their decision. We have asked for the documentation that they used to make that decision. What we have received from the Department of Homeland Security was information stating that they had the basis to determine that Dr. Roberts was ineligible to work in our country.
Do you need that, though, to make a decision on whether you're going to fire this guy? I mean, it seems like you would need that for legal reasons.
It is very important for us to take a moment and make sure that we have the basis for any decision we made. So we have asked Dr. Roberts' attorney by tomorrow at noon to provide a set of documents, including the information to verify his citizenship status.
What is the mood of the district, and how has this affected that mood?
Yeah. You know, when we think about this as board members, we think about the kids. And, you know, he sparked a joy in our kids and an excitement in our kids. And that's, I think it probably over time is probably heartbreaking if it turns out that his citizenship status is in question. Okay. So on the flip side, I do want to say one thing. We have total confidence in Matt Smith as our interim superintendent. He is leading with such grace, and he is leading his principals, and they are supporting the teachers and students and staff. And so two things can be true. You can feel disappointed and process that. And at the same time, the staff also has to move forward to make sure the conditions for learning for our students are there.
Jackie, you called for radical empathy. Are you still calling for radical empathy, and is the board taking any responsibility for his hiring?
Yeah, you know, I appreciate the question. So the board operates in good faith in partnership with the search firm that we used. And so a search firm is hired, very typical in a process. The board contracts with a search firm, and the search firm is given a set of parameters for what we're looking for in a superintendent. They go out and they provide a list of candidates to us. We go through the interview process, and then they in turn work with a third party to do all of the vetting, and I think the vetting includes criminal background check and other other checks, and then they come back with a recommendation for us. And so we are operating on the information that was given to us, and there was nothing in the information that was given to us to allude to any question about his citizenship.
How do you react to what happened on Friday? I mean, he fled the scene, he had a gun, he had a knife. This ended so strangely. How have you dealt with that, and how unusual has that been for the board in this district?
I mean, I think it's jarring, right? It is, I mean, we all found out with everybody else from the news. And so I think for us, our responsibility is to do what is right and in the best interest of the district, and to provide the continuity that we needed to. And so obviously one of the first things we did was when Dr. Roberts was detained and no longer able to lead the district because he was physically unable, was turning to Matt Smith and asking him to take over and lead as interim superintendent and move the district operations forward, because at that time we had over 35,000 students and staff in our buildings.
You talk about the kids a lot, and I know it sounds kind of simple, but it sounds like he was a big part of so many kids' lives. How do you explain this to a child, what's happening right now?
Yeah, you know, one of the things I'm really proud of Dr. Roberts, of interim superintendent Matt Smith, along with his team of advisors, is working with principals and teachers on how to talk to children about a very difficult situation. And so citizenship is a very complex issue. It requires multiple documents, and that is something that we are entrusting our staff, along with the families, to talk with their children about what citizenship means, and also to help people understand that two things can be true. It is possible that you may not be a citizen, but you are still a good human being.
What would the Iowa Board of Examiners, educational examiners, have been reviewing? Would it have been the same materials that you did, the Social Security card and the driver's license?
I don't know what basis they use. I do know that in addition to the things that we've talked about, they also do a fingerprinting check as well.
They found the weapons inside of a district vehicle. Can you talk to me if that is grounds for termination and why he may have had that vehicle that day?
Yeah, we were completely shocked about the guns. And our board policy states that guns are not allowed on district property at district sanctioned events. And so we were as shocked as everybody else was to learn of that.
But is that grounds for termination if you find an employee with a weapon in a district vehicle? Is that itself grounds for termination?
Yes.
We've heard a lot of speculation about Dr. Roberts' background and everything. I'm just wondering, what have you been able to find out about his academic background, as far as like the various degrees that he has spoken about and has shown up in, various bios?
I think everybody's piecing together a story of Dr. Roberts' background. What we are doing is waiting to hear back from Dr. Roberts' attorney, who is at Parish Crideneer, who has been asked to provide us a comprehensive immigration and education history so that we can have a comprehensive picture.
You have immigrant students, you have refugee students, you have undocumented students. How are you making sure that they feel safe at school?
Yeah. The most important thing we can do as leaders, as a community, is to put as much love and compassion for these students as possible. These are young children trying to process a very difficult subject. And so I think both at the academic level, making sure that teachers and staff feel comfortable having conversations with students. We've sent out notifications and information to families to help them think about ways to talk to their students. And I think we've also made it clear as a board that we do not want hateful rhetoric directed at our staff, directed at our students, directed at the board, because it is not helpful.
As you look back at the hiring process these last few days, has there been anything you found, mistakes that were made, things that you wish you would have done differently, looking at it in light of this new information?
Yeah, in hindsight, I think there is nothing we would have done differently because we followed the process. I think and quite honestly, this is the process that many employers use all across the country. And so I think the one thing we will do after this is a kind of an after-action review to identify ways that we might strengthen or even enhance the process. So I think two things can be true. We followed the process, which is the same process as other employers, and yet we will look for ways to strengthen the process given what's happened.
Building on a question.
I'm going to go over here.
Community members have told me that they are still shocked and just processing this, a couple days after. We've talked about the children, but just the people in the community, maybe even people that don't have students here, what would you say to them?
Yeah. Look, this is an individual who brought a lot of enthusiasm and vibrancy to our community and sparked energy around public education. And we also can continue to have that conversation. Public education is a critical element of our country. And we're going to keep having that conversation. And I know that the people that are grappling with this, I also know that in the spirit of where we are right now, what they want is the best for our students, which is a high quality public education.
This is looking ahead to November, so a little bit, but you have the bond referendum that's on the ballot, $265 million. Dr. Roberts was a spearhead for that. So I guess, what is messaging turned to now? I've seen some comments on social media discussing that, people saying, hey, vote it down. I guess I'm just curious your opinion.
Yeah. What most people forget is that the Reimagining Education actually was catalyzed by a very big, broad board vision to reimagine the way our students learn and think. And it was actually put together comprehensively by a lot of staff, including our interim superintendent, Matt Smith. And so, and it was informed by our community, by our parents, by our students. And so all of those same things exist. So our job is to take this big vision and ask our community to invest in our kids. And by all indications, we are moving forward and we have community support to do that.
Is there any message you would have to parents who might have some concern about the hiring process within the district?
We should feel very confident about our hiring process. We background check every employee. We have verified documentation.
New York City tonight on this beautiful warm night as we almost close out the month of September. It seems impossible, but we still have warm, fabulous temperatures out there. If you can get a chance to get out this week, I think it's going to be pretty good. Welcome again to Newsroom Live. I'm Sharon Crowley, and I'm reporting to you from the Fox 5 newsroom here on the Upper East Side of New York. And we have so many headlines to get to. We are going to be hearing from Chief Meteorologist Nick Gregory about unsettled weather out in the Atlantic and tropical storms on their way, and also the local forecast and whether any of that will impact us. So that's coming up a few minutes from now. But first, let's get to what everybody's talking about. We are facing the end of the month, and by that, we are facing the end of the government being funded. Let's take a live look in Washington, D.C. tonight. That is where lawmakers are working, or they should be working, to avoid a government shutdown. Today, we had leaders from the Democrats and the Republicans meet, leadership from the Democratic Party, leadership from the Republican Party meet together at the White House with President Trump. Unfortunately, they did not come up with a deal. So right now, there is still a good chance that, thousands and thousands of federal workers could be furloughed.